Good to be here with all of you. Looking forward to our latest coach conversation. As Kevin alluded to, this is talking with lacrosse and rowing and all about building a strong program. We have some great coaches and athletes here with us today. And just to kind of get us started, we're going to ask each to kind of give a little bit of their background and their bio. And as Kevin mentioned, feel free to leave comments, questions in the Zoom chat, and we'll make sure to get to those as we go along. Some of them we might touch on, but also love to get your feedback and interaction. And so we'll start it off. I'll get it over to head rowing coach Alex Canale. And Alex, just kind of give us a little bit of a background of your career and your bio and how you are at Manhattan. We have a little bit of a Alex, are you there to join us?
Sorry about that. Thanks, Greg. I came to Manhattan in the fall of 2017. Before that, I had been the head rowing coach and founder of the program at St. Peter's Prep in Jersey City, my alma mater, and had been a four-year rower at Loyola University, then Loyola College in Maryland. This is I'm going into the fourth year with Manhattan. Getting a late start on the 17-18 season. I came in the middle of September when the head coach departed, kind of unexpectedly. But in the 9 years previous, I had founded and coached the St. Peter's Prep high school team, and am very involved with them still. I'm still their program director. And I run the U19 and U23 programs for the New York Rowing Association out of Overpeck Lake in Ridgefield, New Jersey.
Good stuff. A lot going on there. Appreciate you being here with us. And now we'll turn to one of your athletes, Rachel Foertch, kind enough to join us. Rachel, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here in Manhattan.
Sure. So I walked onto the team right when Coach joined the team. So we kind of joined around the same time. So my freshman year, everything was all pretty new. And now I'm a senior. So I've been rowing in the first varsity 8 for the past year. And I typically am in the bow seat. So as Kevin said, it's one of the more technically sound seats. Before college, I played some high school sports. I played volleyball and basketball, and that's kind of where I had my athletic background from to join the rowing team.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Now we'll turn from rowing to lacrosse, and we'll get it over to head coach Drew Kelleher. And Drew, just tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to Manhattan College.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So I played in college up at the University of Vermont. I played for 4 years there. Got my degree in education. Immediately following college, I went out to lovely Utica, New York, and spent 2 years as an assistant coach at Hamilton College in Division III, the NESCAC. Following a stint there, I went to Siena for a year. Regret every second of coaching at that Ravel's place. And then I moved on. I was fortunate enough to go to Boston University, where we started the program, and spent 3 years there. Only had 2 seasons of actual lacrosse. We spent 1 year literally recruiting exclusively. And then I came over to Manhattan College, which was not too foreign to me, being that both my parents are alums and my grandfather played basketball here. So I've sat in more games at Dratty Gym than a lot of people probably know. And I was wrestling my brother in the mats behind the bleachers at a very young age. And I just finished, I guess we'll call it my 4.5 season after this one ended midway with coronavirus. But enjoyed every second of Manhattan and certainly enjoying building the program.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Love to hear of your Jasper appreciation and history. And now we'll go last but not least, one of your athletes here, Brendan Krebs. Brendan, thanks for being here. Just tell us a bit about your journey.
Hey, Greg. Thank you. My name's Brendan Krebs. I'm from East Wilson, New York, on Long Island. I'm going to be a senior goalie for the men's lacrosse team. Probably I'd say around second grade, my dad signed me up for a lacrosse clinic. That's when I really got into it. 2 of my mom's brothers played, and my dad played growing up, and both of his brothers played. So it was kind of already in the family. played for like the rec league in my town. And then growing up, I went to Chaminade High School where I play lacrosse. And then I went to a couple of prospect camps at Manhattan. And I liked what Coach Kelleher and Coach O'Derna were doing. It was very, excuse me, it was very interesting to me. I liked where the program was going. And I ended up at Manhattan. So I'm going to be a senior this year, and I'm looking forward to getting back on campus.
Excellent. Good stuff. Appreciate all four of you being here. And as we talked about at the top, the premise of this conversation is about building a program. And so we'll go back to our coaches to start here. And I'll go back to Alex to begin. But as you take on this role of Manhattan, and obviously you'd worked with other programs and you're still involved with other ones, so you have a sense of what a good one looks and feels like. What was the initial goal or list of tasks as you take on this Manhattan program as you're trying to build a successful team?
So when I came on to Manhattan in 2017, the team had only been elevated to the varsity sports status 2 years prior. And there was a team of roughly 23 athletes, which is our minimum to compete in the conference. So the list of tasks was quite lengthy, but it had a unique feel for me and a unique feel for the athletes. They were excited to feel the buy-in from the department and to have somebody who was new like them. A lot of them were real young, freshmen and sophomores. It was my first time coaching collegiate women. I had done a stint at Iona coaching their freshman men a couple of years before that. But we had to build everything. We had to build recruiting. We had to build equipment. We had to change the training plan. So equipment was first, not to quite literally put the cart before the horse, but if I was going to ask them to train harder and train more and start winning, they had to know that we were building the ground underneath them to make that task a success. So we started chipping away at new boats, and everything else kind of followed. We incrementally increased training volume and time to where we could be competitive in the conference and beyond. And we did that, with lots of honesty. Like, this is what we're doing. And everybody kind of learned the sport, and they knew how we were building and what we were building. And there wasn't that, giant melt that there sometimes is when you have a new head coach. A lot of them stuck around. Sadly, our 2020 class was 11 people, and just about all of them stuck it out with a brand new coach right to the end. So, equipment first, and then recruiting, and now we're working on building our competition schedule, which is a little awkward during a pandemic, and our coaching staff. So the list continues.
Yeah, as I imagine everyone will hit on here, right? Trying to get better and do better things. And you talked about those 11 seniors. That's part of one of the many heartbreaks of this pandemic, right? Having a plan and then having it kind of just thrown out the window. Drew, I'll swing it over to you. You come on to a team that has only one win. So obviously one of the tasks is let's get 2 wins or 3 wins. And so in addition to that, what else were the goals you had in mind when you take over the Jaspers?
Yeah, I mean, the first step was you got to get good people around you. I think being a head coach is great, but if you don't have awesome assistant coaches, you're kind of in a tough spot, especially when you have a roster of about 45 guys. So I've been really blessed to have Coach O'Derna with me since the day we got here. He was hired 1 month after me. He's been here the whole time, and we've had 3 really good, assistants come through here. And now we have Coach Ferboni, who's done an amazing job for us. And then, it's, you got to recruit. And there's a lot of lonely nights at weird hotels on Long Island where you're watching guys like Brendan play and waking up at weird hours and sweating in the sun. And once you get the right people around you, you do what Alex said. You have to build an infrastructure, and that's everything from an equipment deal, which they didn't have here, to a training program in the weight room to practicing the right way and, slowly evolving the culture. I learned quickly coming from Boston, where we started from scratch, that changing a program is very different from building one. We had the ability at Boston to kind of establish what we wanted rather than change habits and develop the ones you wanted. And I think that's been a growing situation for me and for our staff to learn different ways to evolve. But it's been really fun. I think the hard nights make, awesome wins like we had at Bryan a couple years ago, or, playing down at Navy this year and being right there with them the whole time, that much more fun. And it's, the one thing I'll say is building a program that doesn't stop. We've kind of gone with the motto of we can't beat Marist until we can beat Manhattan. And every day we're trying to be the best us we can be, and, hopefully keep going.
Thanks, Drew. It takes commitment to repeatedly drive the Long Island Expressway. So thanks for your efforts to get out there and recruit and find some new athletes. Rachel, I'll go back to you. You talked about being a walk-on this team, right? So the coaches touched on building a culture that people want to be around and getting good people, and in some cases the equipment and all of those sorts of things. You're in a position where you're trying to prove that you belong on the team you're walking on, but you also want to feel good about the program that you're joining. So what was it that made you want to kind of buy into this thing that you were trying to join?
Right. So as Coach Alex said, the program had really been established at the Division I level for 2 years. And my freshman year was the beginning of the third year. So many of the people on the team were walk-ons. We had few recruited athletes that had rowing experience from high school. And it was just very inspiring to see how these girls had taken a new sport in a new college environment. Like, hey, I'm away from my family for the first time. I'm waking up for these 5 a.m. practices, but I'm here, I'm going to do it. And seeing my teammates put in all that hard work, really starting from no rowing experience to my first fall season, I was seeing some of our athletes get gold medals and regattas. And I was just like, wow, this is great. I can do this if I put in the work. And that was what really inspired me to stay with it, keep with the new sport, is just seeing how hard everybody else was working on the team. I knew I wanted to contribute that much and even more to be successful.
Thanks for that. And Brendan, we'll go back to you. And Drew's talking about building this program, right? And there's so much more than just on paper trying to improve the wins. There's the staff and the regimen and all that other stuff. As you're taking a look at deciding where to go, what is it about Manhattan that lures you in and makes you want to be a part of the program?
Yeah, Coach talked about it. It comes down to every single guy, and we're big on, buying in. And like everybody going towards the same goal, winning a MAC championship. And I think that's really what captured my attention to coming to Manhattan, was the brotherhood in the locker room, the camaraderie. And that's a big part of our program. And I think that's really what helps us get wins.
And again, just a reminder, if anyone has any questions, comments, feel free to add them in the group chat. Looks like we have a lot of rowing folks here joining us. Appreciate everyone checking in, so you can see some of the names that are joining us from all over. Appreciate all of them tuning in and watching and cheering on the Jasper programs here. We've talked a bit about, as whether it's coach or athlete, you come into this program and kind of what you have in mind. Drew, I'll come back to you. You obviously have these team goals, but you have personal goals too as a coach, and maybe they're all just intertwined in one big thing. But as you're getting into it, and even now, as you've been a few years in the mix, what are some of those personal goals, the things you're looking to accomplish? I'm sure what the team is able to accomplish is part of that as well.
It's gonna sound like coach speak, but we are really trying to win off the field first. I'm really so proud of my guys and how they carry themselves in the classroom. I think we've been above a 3.3 GPA every semester since we've been here, and for 45 young men in a college, I'm incredibly proud of that. I think the way we act socially is really important, and I believe that stuff leads to wins on the field. And I think we're really starting to see that. And I think from a lacrosse standpoint, we want to build a champion here. When we were showing up and it was a 1-14 program, that seemed like a very daunting task. And it certainly was a little bit further than I had initially hoped. But, the only thing that we know how to do is to keep working at it. And, when our season was canceled on March 12th, I had never felt more confident that we were going to achieve those goals and be in the MAC tournament and fight to take on those teams. So, my goal this year is to allow these guys and put them in the best position to be successful and achieve their goals. And hopefully that means we're playing in May against the nationally ranked teams.
And I'll stick with lacrosse. I'll go back to Brendan here. And you obviously have team goals. You know that as you come to the program, the coaching staff, the captains, they lay out what the group's trying to do. But I imagine you also have personal goals as well. What were some of the things that you wanted to accomplish, even if they're intertwined with the team, in your first year as you get to Manhattan?
Personal goals, I would say I would just try and do my job, play to the best of my ability every game, go 110% every practice, every lift, every part of conditioning. And I think personal accomplishments come along with doing that, like working for your team, those will just come with it. So I don't know if I really had any major sites for myself, but I was just doing what was for my team, and things usually come along with that.
Alex, you touched on all these other things you had to do before you even look at results. It's the training, it's the actual boat, it's all these things. When you're taking on this Jasper's role, what are some of your personal goals that you're looking to accomplish in your first year?
Wow. So in that first year, the team had finished ninth in the MAC championship of 10 people the year before that. And so obviously, looking towards the end of the season, we wanted to improve on that. I mean, that was number one. You don't want to go into your first year and end up in the same place. But the other part of that was we only had the 23 athletes that we needed. And I definitely wanted to build out the team, to show growth and to be surrounded by people that wanted to be there. I'm an old summer camp staffer, camp director. You put everybody in a confined space, you make them live and work together. You want to be surrounded by people who want to be there. And with rowing, you put everybody in a really confined space and make them work really hard. If you can get that aspect right, if you can get a group of people that want to work together, I say this to the women on the team all the time. You don't have to love each other. You just have to respect each other while you're in that really confined space, and the rest will come. So building out that group was the big goal year one.
Rachel, you're one of the athletes that, as Alex talks about, spends a lot of time in these confined spaces. You want to make this team. You're one of many walk-ons. You get on the roster, and then what are your personal goals after you've gotten past that? Now I'm on the team.
Yeah, so definitely with rowing, especially during the races, I think it's more of a team sport than any, because you're only as fast as your weakest link. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So I really tried to make myself as fast as I possibly could that first year. I pushed myself in our winter conditioning pretty hard, and I had great results. I mean, coach came up with a bunch of goals for all of us to hit. So I constantly kept trying to see what I could do to hit those goals, just to get as fast as I could for my team.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We're talking lacrosse, rowing here, building a strong program. Two of our Manhattan College athletic programs. Again, any questions, comments, feel free to leave them in the Zoom chat. Drew, you touched on this a bit, and you kind of alluded to, well, it's a little bit of coach speak, right? I'm proud of the academic part of it, but that is such a huge part of it, right? I mean, at a baseline, if people aren't doing the job academically, they're not going to be eligible to play this sport that they might love, right? And it goes much further than that, what they're trying to do beyond. But when you're talking about building your program, in addition to the lacrosse aspect of it, what else are you working on?
Yeah, I mean, Listen, to put it as simple as possible, if we're playing Navy on a Friday, I don't want to worry if you're in class on a Wednesday. We want to be able to prepare and do what we have to do to compete with them. But I think, what's been really cool about our team is the way that I would put it is it's become really cool to care. And that shows in all facets of their life. Whether it's, putting on a polo shirt for a team meeting, whether it's, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Our guys do such a good job of representing not just themselves, but their families and our program all the time really well. And I know Brendan won't talk about it, but I certainly will. Brendan came here his first year and probably very under recruited, to be transparent. And I think he played in a game and a half his first year. And you talk about a culture, I would define Brendan as patiently impatient. He didn't get in most of the first year. He was certainly chomping at the bit. But then his first year when he got in there, to say he's one of the best goalies in the country is an understatement. I think he is the best. And I think that's a sign of our culture. Guys are willing to be great teammates and take care of each other before they get their opportunity. And I think he really embodies what we want our guys to be about when no one's looking.
And we stay on that impact beyond sport, Alex. I'll come back to you. Both of these programs had a gun medal finalist. That's Manhattan's highest accolade. And Alex, when you think about beyond the results, out of the boat, other things that the student athletes are involved in, what are some of the other priorities?
So we routinely have somewhere between 5 and 10 athletes on the team with 4.0 GPAs. I think our spring GPA was a 3.6 and change. A lot of our athletes are physical science majors, engineers. So they have a heavy course load in the mornings, if you're familiar with the college schedule. And we practice from 5 to 7 a.m. So we're out of practice and, they're yelling at me like, Coach, it's 7 o'clock, we got to go. And they, they're getting back to class. My background is in teaching. I've been a high school chemistry teacher for 11 years. I talk with them about needs they have for this class and that, and how to be successful and what to take advantage of. And, they know that I have their back on the education side, and they know that, I watch their grades closely and take it very seriously. But that has to be first. For me, our morning practice schedule is really grueling for people who are not accustomed to mornings. And when we travel, it's for days at a time. We don't have any of the weekday games that other programs have. It's just weekends, so it's their only free time, and usually it's both days. So to say that there's so much more to the sport than practice and competition, it's true, because most of the team and most teams nationwide are true walk-ons. So they don't just walk onto programs; they learn the sport as a freshman in college. So they're lifelong learners. Those are the people who are the most successful.
And then as we turn back to the athletes, and Rachel, I'll come back to you. This has been a theme throughout our coach conversations during a pandemic where people haven't been able to train or practice or compete the way they would have liked. And it's really left, I think, athletes and coaches thinking about their identity as an athlete beyond just their sport. And so as you think about your experience at Manhattan, beyond just being an athlete, what else has been a priority for you? Obviously academics, but to kind of give you that well-rounded experience, what else has been such a big priority in your college life?
I think creating a sense of community is one of the biggest things at Manhattan College that, every Jasper is proud of. And so we like to, as, the common theme of well-roundedness, we like to strive in academics, and then also socially. We like to support a lot of other teams. So there have been like a few games where, we have gotten almost all of our team to go to a volleyball game or go to a soccer game, go to a lacrosse game, and try to support other programs, because especially being a new program, we want to get support from other teams on campus. So we do a lot of stuff like that and like team bonding. So we have lots of pasta parties before regattas, have to carbo load, so things like that.
Excellent. And Brendan, I'll kind of keep it along the same theme there, but if there's no lacrosse, and obviously all excited for everything to kind of come back to normal, but thinking about the college outside of your sport, what else do you enjoy about your Manhattan College experience?
Yeah, Manhattan College, I'd say, is a relatively small college. So there's a huge sense of community, and it's even greater within our lacrosse team. I think we are all very close. I don't know if we would hang out with a lot of people outside of the athletic department. So that is also another sense of community we have. But I'd say a big part what we like to do, going to like other teams' games, like Rachel said, Manhattan SAC promotes Go Green events where we would attend other teams' games. And I think that's a big time when we like to, come together, hang out outside of practice or going to class.
Let's talk a bit about recruiting now. And Drew, I'll go back to you and just this idea of comparing talent versus chemistry, and ideally you get a little bit of both. I'd imagine talent is the thing that catches your eye initially. And then how do you kind of gauge, well, this person looks like they're very good at the sport, but how do I know that they will work well in our program?
Yeah, I mean, my recruiting philosophy has definitely evolved as I've been here. Our number one rule in recruiting is that we want people that want to be here. We're not going to get the most out of somebody who's coming here thinking they're doing us a favor. And that's something that I learned the hard way early on. We had some guys that thought they were going to come here and play right away. And no matter where you go, you have to earn everything. And then that's a tribute to the guys within our program. But with regards to recruiting, I mean, we want the right people first. Obviously, there's a level of talent we have to get. I think as a coach, you're trying to figure out what the right fit is all the time. And we've made kind of our name with some guys that, might not be as, quote, sexy a recruit as some other people. I don't know if, again, I spoke to Brendan, not necessarily being the highest recruited. Another guy in our program, Luke Hansen, who's become a tremendous lacrosse player. He was very under-recruited, as well as all of our fifth-year seniors who are coming back next year. And again, we've found that the guys that have something to prove have really worked out well for us, and they want to come here and build this thing. And again, I think with recruiting, you have to look at what they want to achieve also. If you want to come somewhere and prove something and earn a MAC championship and be the first to do it since 2002, we're a great place for you. And I think we have a roster and a locker room full of guys that really do want to finally get it done for us here. And that's what we have to find in recruiting, is the people that are hungry to achieve that. And that's also challenging because you got to ask some tough questions, and it's definitely cost us some guys. But I think the right guy is a lot of times better than the best guy.
Well said, Alex. You let us know that often athletes are coming on to the rowing team and then maybe they've never done it before, right? You just get a great athlete that is willing to take it on. And other sports so often use rowing analogies for their sport, right? They want everyone rowing in the same direction, or, PJ Fleck says, let's row the boat, those sorts of things. You quite literally need that team chemistry most of all. So how do you gauge between someone who will work well, as you've talked about, these confined spaces, versus someone who's just really good?
Yeah. First, from the walk-on side, I mean, we pick up a bunch of walk-ons every fall, and anybody who wants to come out, we'll make time for our walk-on tryout as per all the rules and regulations. And from that point, it's kind of like a war of attrition. If you want to be there and put in the time and learn the sport, then you'll make it. And if you don't, you'll kind of self-select out. And some of those people who have made it and bought into the team that was present have done an incredible job. I was a walk-on. I mean, I learned rowing as a freshman in college. If you're willing to accept what it gives to you and give back what it deserves, then you can make a life out of it. And that's a great story for me to be able to tell my athletes. As far as recruiting experienced rowers, chemistry is everything, for sure. Can you take risks with somebody who has more talent than chemistry? Yes, but it's a risk. Certainly something I've done and will do again. But you have to be honest with yourself when you're recruiting that you're taking a risk on that person who maybe didn't have all the chemistry you were looking for in that visit. I'm on my own recruiting, so my recruits definitely have to want to be here and be patient. But I've also been a high school coach for a long time. And I feel like I identify people really early. I've definitely talked to some people who then had breakout years and went to much bigger programs. But I do feel like I know what I'm looking for, and I'm really comfortable with the high school racing scene, having been in it all over the country as a coach. But yeah, those maybe under-recruited athletes who I can identify because I spent so much time in the high school scene, and who want to be at Manhattan can make a huge impact. I mean, we're a small team in a small conference, but we're centrally located, and we get to race a lot of big teams and big conferences. So yeah, it's a great place to be, and we're definitely on the rise there. So.
Thanks for that. Both coaches really hit on, I think, what they look for in athletes that come to the program, whether it's a walk-on or a recruit, that sort of thing. As we turn back to our athletes, Rachel, I'll go back to you. Already on the team, obviously. Thinking about your teammates, the ones that have come on in your time there, what's been a couple of similar characteristics, and maybe it's things Alex already hit on, but what are some things that make for a good teammate? Someone that gives you a feeling like they're in this at the same level that I'm in this.
Absolutely. So being a senior, I've seen now this will be the third class of incoming freshmen. Every class we have recruits and walk-ons, kind of a mix of both. And you can tell kind of from the personality, like the first day, who is really there to be 100% there for the team with the chemistry. I think one thing for rowing, especially with me, is I'll push really hard in a race for myself, but I'll push harder for my teammates. And I know like last spring when we're in Max, that's the last race for all the seniors. That's it. And when your coxswain is yelling out, your power 10s, and they're just like, okay, now one for the seniors, that just automatically I'm like, okay, I have to push hard for them. And I think a lot of people who join the team now, you can just tell like they're in it for the team, not for themselves. And that's kind of what I look for in a freshman teammate.
And Brendan, Drew told us early on in your career, right? Patiently impatient. You're dying to get out there. You're not getting as many opportunities early on. You obviously gave off a vibe of what you wanted to do. You wanted to be a part of this. How do you get a sense from your teammates that they want it the way that you want it, that they're dying to get out there, they want to be a part of things? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be on the field. Everybody wants to be playing. But I think you're always just working towards the betterment of the team. And you're working for the guy to the left of you, to the right of you. And that's just what I was doing. And I think that's just like the standard at Manhattan College for the men's lacrosse team. And if you do that, there will be good things to come. And I think we've been doing that. And we've been doing that more and more each year since I've been here. And there's been improvement for sure, as you could see.
We're talking with Manhattan Lacrosse Rowing. If anyone has any questions, comments, feel free to leave them in the Zoom chat. We're going to jump into now a bit of the idea of mission as a team, culture as a group. Drew, I'll come back to you, and this idea of getting everyone to kind of follow the same mission and kind of believe the same things and go after it the same way. What's the challenge in that? How do you get a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old guys to all go in the same direction and buy into what you're talking about every day?
Certainly wish I had the answer. I think that's probably the toughest part of our job, is taking a large group of young men and getting them go in the same direction. I think the biggest challenge, quite honestly, Greg, is just, getting people to really understand that there's a way that your personal goals can align with the team goals. And they might not always be at the same time. I think what I found was so special about our team this year was we had really become a team. There wasn't one superstar that we were pushing forward. Obviously, we're blessed to have guys like Brendan and Luke and Kyle and these guys and Brendan Grinnell, and we have a lot of really, really good lacrosse players. But never once this year did I feel like one person's agenda trumped what we were trying to do as a team. And I think that comes from the players, to be quite honest. As a coach, you can talk about it, you can educate it. But when your players really enact it, I think that's when it comes to life. And then what I saw out of our group this year was they were ready to really do that. And then all of a sudden the pause button was hit. So now my challenge as the head coach and as our staff is, how do we recreate that for round two? And now we got, Brendan's group who is true seniors, and I know they want their senior year to be their seniors. And then I have 6 fifth-year seniors who are coming back, which is amazing, and blending it all together. So I think the answer, Greg, is every day we got to figure that out. And hopefully we get the secret sauce created by Max next year when we head out to Canisius, and we're ready to go.
And Drew, you bring up an interesting point there about it kind of being player-led. I'm curious if there's an example or a memory, and it could be something even small, where you felt like maybe some of these guys are not doing. Maybe it's a morning workout, right, or the way that they clean up the field, or whatever it might be, right, and the rest of the larger group kind of brought everyone back to where it should be. Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one incredible example from last year. We had played a really tight game with Navy, and definitely thought we belonged. And then we played VMI, and we were fortunate enough to win, but I don't think we played well. And then we went out to Wagner this year, and our first quarter was just too sloppy. It wasn't where we wanted it. And we've been really lucky. And this guy's coming back this year, Kelson Borisenko. He'll be a 4th-year captain for us this year, which is incredibly rare. Little bit of a crazy Canadian, but he's not afraid to speak his mind. And he took the huddle out at Wagner, and he let the team know his thoughts. And our guys absolutely responded, and we went on to win 16-4. I think the score at the time was something like 2-2 or 2-1. When it comes from a player, it just means more. And I think that's something that getting your guys to feel comfortable being honest with each other, I think, is really important. I think one thing that changed this year within our team is our guys were willing to tell the truth, not just make each other feel good. And that doesn't mean you're negative or you bring somebody down, but nobody gets better from being told how awesome they are all the time. There's a really important time for, positive reinforcement and building people up. But when a peer says, hey, you got to be better here, usually guys listen. And I think we've finally started to really get that within our program. And it's been a lot of fun to see.
Good stuff, Alex. I'll come back to you. And similar thought, as you're trying to get everyone on the same mission. And it's, one of those things, right? You can't be in the boat with the group, right? At a certain point, they have to go off and do their thing, and you're going to trust that it's going to happen the way that you've talked about. How do you instill that in the group so that the things go the way the entire team has decided they should?
Yeah, there's a lot of trust. Starting at practice, we practice in the dark. We take everything out in the dark, and we get on the water in the dark, and they warm up in the dark, and then we get to the real thing, like just as the sun is coming up. And then on race day, you kind of shove them off the dock and you say, go. Communication is key. There's lots and lots of long emails, but there's just as many long sit-down conversations. Everybody's got to know why we're doing what we're doing, and how we're going to do it. I said before, you don't all have to love each other. You don't have to like what we're doing or why we're doing it. But as long as everybody knows what it is, that's a starting point. changed two like pretty significant parts of my practice plan this year from feedback from athletes because it wasn't working, or it just needed something a little different. So they're just as much a part of, they're probably a bigger part of moving everything in the same direction than I could ever be. Our coxswain core group is great. They're in touch with each other and in touch with me. And they, not that the practice plans are secret, but like they take them, at the beginning of a practice or the day before, and then they execute them on the water or on land, and relay feedback back to me. And they're steering and they're, explaining drills to the rowers on the water. And sometimes there's a little pushback from that like student peer voice, but circling back on any of that pushback and or leaving it on the water is really important to the rower coxswain dynamic, and it kind of brings us all together full circle at the end of every practice or every week or every race.
I'm glad you brought up that coxswain position. I think it's very interesting in that sport, and it's not a thing a lot of other sports have that I can think of off the top, where you have a peer, right, that is kind of giving instruction in that role in your team, in other teams. How much of that position is kind of an extension of what the coaching staff is putting out there? And then to your point, how do you manage what I have to imagine can be a tricky relationship between people that are very assertive, right, giving thoughts and feedback with the group that's working very, very hard to make the boat go? Sure.
Yeah. I've never been a coxswain. I'm 6'4" and a lean 220 right now. So having never been a coxswain, to be a coxswain coach is both challenging and fun. Coaching and teaching and standing up in front of a room full of people all the time, you can kind of sit them down and talk them through, how to read people, what to say, when to say it. And again, they're an extension of the practice plan, sure, but they will have something that I'll never have, and that's what the boat feels like in that instant. They have to be just as innovative in the moment as I am at my desk, 3 days beforehand with a pen and paper. They have to be excellent, and they are.
Well said. That's an interesting relationship there. I appreciate you adding some more about it. We're talking a bit about mission, culture. I'll go back to the athletes now, and Brendan, I'll come back to you just to talk a bit about the culture of the program first, as kind of how you see it, and then if there was maybe someone that you were hosting on a recruiting visit or a friend from back home that was saying, hey, should I play at Manhattan? What's that like? How do you describe the culture of the team you're a part of?
Yeah, I would say the culture for the men's lacrosse team in Manhattan is big on doing the right thing, whether it's holding the door for someone or saying yes, please, or thank you. I think that's where it really starts. And I think it builds off that. And it starts doing those things, and the rest usually comes on the field or in the weight room. And working hard, doing those things will get you where you want to be, and a MAC championship. And I think that's what we've been doing.
And Brendan, just to go off what you talked about there, is I think a lot of coaches and athletes talk about what little things lead to the big things. Do you notice? I mean, it's obviously awesome to have great manners, right, and be respectful and all those sorts of things. But do those things, as you're around this group, everyone's operating that way in a really thoughtful frame of mind? Does that have an impact in the way you practice, the way that you compete, those sorts of things?
Yeah. I mean, I think Alex talked about it. You don't have to like the guys around you. I mean, I sure think all of my teammates like me. I like all of them, but I respect all of them. And I hope they respect me. And I think that really helps with like working hard, because once you respect someone, you want to do something for them, they want to do something for you, and that's how you build a program. That's how you build a team.
Rachel, I'll come back to you talking about culture and now being on the roster for a little while. When you're describing it to others and why this is a thing that you really like being a part of, how do you describe the culture of your team?
So when I joined the team, all of the upperclassmen, they were great mentors, both in rowing and then outside of rowing. You know, they would teach me how to strap down boats, how to de-rig and rig boats. And then outside of rowing, they would help me with my classes. There were a few girls I was fortunate enough that had taken classes I had already taken. So they would just help me out with homeworks. And then, so now I think that that responsibility is really on me and my, you know, the senior class and even the junior class to be that mentor for the, like the sophomores and the freshmen, really show them around campus, show them, you know, just simple things, where to get a bite to eat, and then make sure that they feel comfortable on the team and in their classrooms, because, you know, we have experience to share with them.
And just to further that, because we were talking a bit about the way that the rowing group really has to work together, right? You're put in these situations where there's a lot of trust. You're out on your own, you know, whatever the body of water is, right? The coach is somewhere far away. You're training before the sun comes up, so no one can even really see what you're doing, right? Except for you in the boat. When it's all clicking correctly, and you hear Olympic athletes and other athletes talk a lot about like this idea of flow state, right? Everything's just kind of working the way that you'd expect it to work. What does that feel like for you, where the cocktail instructions are perfect, everyone's rowing correctly, it's all going good, the times are right? How do you describe that feeling?
So you can really just feel the difference, even if somebody's catching the water with their oar maybe a quarter of a second early or a quarter of a second late. You can feel all of that in the boat. And one of the things we actually did, we did a drill where we were all blindfolded and had to row. And so you're really just focusing on feeling the motion of the boat, the motion of your teammates, and like the momentum of how it all moves. And what a lot of people don't realize, who don't know a lot about rowing, is just how much technique there is involved. And I saw that firsthand my freshman year. On the ergs, I was one of the fastest girls, but I just didn't have the technique to sit in a boat. So when you finally get that, where your team is in unison and you're rowing all as one instead of 8 girls, it's just probably the best feeling in the world. I mean, you just feel unstoppable and just glide down the water. I mean, nothing can stop you at that point.
Tell us more about the blindfold. So was this like how far are you going before someone stops you and says, okay, everyone take off your blindfolds?
I don't really remember that much. I actually was in the boat next to the boat that was being blindfolded, so I didn't get to experience that myself.
Okay.
But I know a lot of my teammates did describe it as quite difficult. So we've done a few difficult drills where it really, you got to tune in mentally, very much at 5 a.m, you know.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can only imagine. Just a few more questions here. It's been a great conversation with members of the rowing and lacrosse teams. We'll kind of come back to the coaches here in Drew and Alex, and just kind of looking through some of our notes and questions here. We've kind of hit on a lot of the important topics. But as you're thinking about your program, as a whole, and we've talked about it in other coach conversations, athletes leave Manhattan and they go on to do great things, right? They are sought after in the working world. People love kind of the culture of a student athlete as they get into the professional space. Drew, when you're talking about that next step, right? I mean, you obviously know lacrosse really well. When you're talking about the graduating senior moving on, what are the things you think they gain from the experience with your group and at Manhattan that will serve them well, whatever they choose to do next?
Yeah, I just have to go back. I think Brendan's getting nervous because we might do some blindfold goalie drills at 5 a.m. I think when our guys leave, obviously we have such a strong alumni network, specifically within the lacrosse program, that we're really fortunate to have. I mean, since the day I was hired, not a day goes by I don't get an email or a text from somebody, whether it's about playoff hockey or job placement. they're around and they care. And I think they're very realistic, but they're also pretty demanding. They'll congratulate us after a good win, but they want to push us to go be champions too. And that's why we were able to get that new facility. And we had so many guys participate in helping make that a reality. But I think when you leave here, you get a really strong network of guys you went through something similar with. And that's, what Division I lacrosse is all about. I think it's, yes, it's about winning and competing, but it's also about overcoming stuff together and sticking through it. And, like Brendan says, brothers, I think our guys really do leave that way.
Alex, similar question to you. This is a group that obviously, as we've touched on in-depthly here, right, can be very independent as a group, right? They're training, they're doing these things. At times, people don't even want to be awake. So they know how to work hard, much like the lacrosse group does as well. How does their experience on campus serve them well post-college life?
Right. So you are a rower forever and you're not a rower forever. You can definitely continue the sport for the rest of your life on a machine or in a single with a friend. I still row with some of my assistant coaches or my old roommates sometimes. But the other side of that is you're not going to compete at that same level for the rest of your life in that same way. But you are, competing in different ways. All the things that you learn, rigging a boat to your specific dimension, or de-rigging boats, caring for boats, driving trailers, how hard you can push yourself, how to read data, all those times that coaches send you. If you're looking at them and you start to understand what they mean, all of that is going to serve you for the rest of your life. There's not a rower out there that hasn't either by choice or not, used broken equipment that they have MacGyvered to last a little bit longer. The sport is expensive, and you learn that the moment you touch a boat. Your coach says, don't break that or don't touch that, it's new. And you learn to make things last and cherish what you do have and what is new. Employers definitely look for that. You don't always want to do more with less, but you want to know that you can when you need to. And those things, they last forever. So that part lasts forever. And I think you can see that in Jasper Rowing alumni. A lot of you are here tuning in. And I'm still getting to know a lot of the Jasper alumni. But my own alumni, I can see their work ethic, that they learned in those mornings, cruising through, some of the most difficult times of their lives.
Well said. Thanks. And we'll finish up with the athletes here and just kind of a thought about the pride in their sport. I think these are two sports, depending on where you're at in the country, they're very well known, right? Brendan, someone from Long Island, lacrosse, very, very popular there, but other places of the country, maybe not as well known. Rowing, we've talked about the work that goes in to be good at that, right? The early mornings, the weekends, all of that sort of stuff. And it doesn't get the due, right, nationally that the sport deserves. So I'm glad we can be here to kind of talk with these athletes and highlight their programs. Brendan, I'll go to you as obviously someone that came up in a lacrosse hot area and out of school on the rise in Manhattan as far as competition goes. What sort of pride do you have in being a lacrosse player and sharing that with others? When people ask what you do or you have the Manhattan lacrosse shirt on, why is that a good feeling? You love what you're a part of.
Yeah, I think it's a really small, tight-knit community. I don't think there are that many Manhattan men's lacrosse players relative to maybe an SEC football team or something. You're going to a smaller school on a smaller program. There aren't that many Division I men's lacrosse teams. I think it's 72, 73. But, you play for the guys next to you, the guys that have come before you. There aren't that many of them. I know a decent amount of them. I think they're all really good guys. And yeah.
Is that a little bit of like a badge of honor thing where it's like, this isn't something everyone can do really well, and I'm one of the ones that does it?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. You know, there's very few that can truly make it their craft and hone that craft, and I think it's something like really good to have on your resume. Yeah.
No doubt. And Rachel, we'll come to you. And just from a team that you walked on to now that one I imagine you couldn't picture life without, what is it about this sport that gives you a pride in what you do?
Um, Probably just starting from a program that was nothing and building it all the way up, from the moment that it became a Division I team to the moment that Coach Alex joined the team to the moment I joined the team. Everybody who has been a part of the program has worked tremendously hard. Um, you know, when I first joined the team, we didn't have a lot of funding. We didn't have the best boats. I think I learned how to row in a boat that was designed for 180-pound men. You know, we started with almost nothing, and we just built the program up to be successful. So the hard work is something that I'll take with me for the rest of my life, and I know that many other girls on the team will do the same.
And what sort of confidence does a situation like that give you? So you can think back on these lessons that you've learned, right, where you had to make the best of it. As Alex talked about, right, everyone who's ever rowed has had to fix things or work on something they had to kind of just make it happen. How do you think that'll serve you going forward in life, even if it has nothing to do with rowing?
Yeah, I think one of the best personality traits that somebody can have is how quickly you can adapt to change. I know we've all seen it firsthand with the coronavirus pandemic. Everything is changing around us. And if you're just stuck in the past, you won't be able to move forward. So just the learning how to think quickly on my feet and rowing is definitely going to help me with my career and later in life.
Excellent. Really good stuff. Our athletes, Rachel, Brendan, our coaches, Drew and Alex, thanks so much for joining us here today.